You're watching Tea with Katriel, a Heart Vibes Media production. Tea with Katriel, Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hello everybody, my name is Katriel and you're watching Tea with Katriel. Today I have a guest with me. His name is Mr. Earl Bradley. We'll be talking about the importance of fathers in the community and in the lives of children. I hope you stick around. I'll see you soon.
Society Today's Show, presented by Heart Vibes TV.
Deep-seated prejudice as a result of historical things or for whatever reason. And until we realize that we can't keep going back to this place if we want to make progress.
Society Today's Show.
All. And we all have to work together as one.
A Heart Vibes Media production, bringing communities together, discussing real issues with real people in today's world.
Hello, Mr. Earl. Welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, doing wonderful. Good
Great.
to see you again.
It's so
Yeah,
good to have you.
great. Yeah, last time I saw you was St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh,
Yeah,
no. What a memory. It was fun. It was good.
right.
Gospel music artist.
Yeah, international stage. Yes, it was.
Yeah. And gag. I gag.
There you go. There you go.
Amazing. Wow.
Right.
Thank you for joining us today.
No problem. I'm glad that you're having me, and I'm glad to be here.
Great. So, what are you having?
I'm having a little tea with Katriel.
Hey,
There you go.
you with Katriel. Yeah, cheers to that.
You couldn't-
Okay.
Can't do this without the teacup.
Yes, it's okay. Wow, this is nice. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, you're here because we want to talk about a very important topic, which we don't talk about it much, except for maybe Father's Day, and you and I know the importance of fatherhood in the lives of people, in the community. So today we're going to talk about fatherhood. Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So before we get started, can you just introduce yourself to the viewers so they can know a little bit more about you?
Okay, well, yeah, my name is Earl Bradley. I'm known as the original one. I am a gospel artist, sing, write, and produce my own music. I'm also a father. I'm a grandfather. I'm a foster dad. And I'm G-Daddy to whoever calls me G-Daddy. So I work in the professional field, Monday through Friday, but I'm saved. I participate in stuff at my church. So I'm just the type of guy that's been brought up, I think, molded in the way that most men, or we wish most men were molded and brought up. So it makes for a good father.
Yes. Wow,
Yes.
that's amazing. A father, a foster father, a granddad. Oh my gosh. So how many children do you have? Plus like your grandchildren, like how many kids?
Oh Lord, that's going to be a hard one. Well, let me see. I'm married, so my family is blended. Let me say that.
Okay.
So biologically, I've got 4 kids that are biologically. Then I married my wife, and she had 3 kids, so that gives me 7 kids. Then I adopted 2 kids, which takes me to 9 kids, and they're not all in the house right now. Some of them are not in the house, thank the Lord.
Yes.
9 kids in the house, that's quite the challenge. And then some of my kids are grown, so I got grandkids. I think I got at least 5
Wow.
grandkids. If not, I'm 4. My middle daughter, she just had a baby actually about 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
And I posted that on Facebook. So yeah, I got quite a few. And then my wife does daycare, and so all of her kids call me G-Daddy. So I'm G-Daddy to them. So I'm kind of like the all-around dad. I've pretty much experienced pretty much everything.
Wow, that is so great, Mr. Earl. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
No problem.
Great. So today we're talking about being a father, being a dad. Can you just let us know, like, in general, what fatherhood is?
Well, fatherhood to me is being a good husband. First, you have to be a good husband. You have to, love and honor and nourish and cherish your wife.
Mm,
That's going to start right there.
mm,
And then, as far as the kids is concerned, to be a good father, you don't want to provoke your kids. You want to bring them up in the admiration of the Lord.
mm-hmm,
Teach them responsibility.
mm,
Teach them accountability. Set examples for them because your kids are looking at you.
mm,
And so what you do pretty much kind of molds them into what they're going to be when they get older.
mm,
So um, don't scorn your child. Um, don't provoke your child. Don't make your child angry.
mm.
Uh, Teach them to be respectful, and carry themselves, as a respectable adult, and teach them to be productive and become productive citizens when they get older.
Right. Wow.
Yes.
Wow. That that's a good way to sum it up. But there
Mm.
you say a father, it starts with being a husband,
Yeah.
right?
Not
Um,
all the time, but
yeah,
being a good
yeah,
husband, yeah, being a
right,
good husband is everything.
right.
Um, when you got a mother and a father in the home, and I know a lot of people don't, but
Yes.
even if you don't having a good role model around your kid, it really makes a difference in setting that example for that kid to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Wow.
definitely.
Wow, that's great. And a father doesn't necessarily have to be someone who actually birthed that child. Like you have adopted kids, right?
That's
And to
correct.
them, you are a dad, you're a father,
That's correct. And that
right?
is so true because all of my kids, even my step kids, foster kids, everybody calls me dad. And I always tell my kids, and even not my kids, but not my biological kids, but I tell them, I could never be your father, but I could be your dad. And and
Mm,
there's and there's a big difference. And I explained that to two of the kids that I had because um, their dad wasn't there for them. And
mm-hmm.
and I was like, well, their father wasn't there for them. And I say,
Right,
because the
right.
father is just anybody could be a father.
Yes.
It's what I tell them. I say, but it takes a man to be a dad. It takes somebody
Mm,
to be there with you through stuff in school, be
mm,
there when you're playing sports, taking you places, and being there to nourish you, to teach you. So it takes um, commitment. That's the word I'm looking for. So you really have to be committed to doing that, and that's what we need in today's society: men that are committed to really being role model for their kids.
mm. That's so true. And then when you talk about commitment, like, I mean, like you said, not all like fathers are dads, but with that commitment, like, I just want us to brainstorm right now. Why do you think it is that a lot of people, I would say, I mean, I don't want to make assumption, but if I look back like my generation or the generation a little bit above of me, like there's a lot
Hmm.
of like commitment issues, like the ability to commit. And then when you listen to like research or people talking about this particular issue, I keep hearing things like, oh, because they never had a dad, or like,
Hmm.
what's your take on that?
Well, I think a lot of it may be because if you didn't have a role model of a dad in the house, it plays a big role. Because
Mm-hmm.
for a boy, and I can speak for myself because I didn't have a dad coming up
Mm,
when I was a child. I didn't have a dad. I've never seen my dad. I'm gonna just put it out there ever in my life.
wow. Wow.
And so I had to really get positive people around me,
Mm,
and most of the time it was females. But one thing I can say about growing up is that the lady that raised me, she really brought me up in the Lord, and she would tell me all the time, this is what a man should do. This is how a man she did. This is how a man should treat the woman. This is how a
yeah.
man should have a job. A man should work. And
Yeah.
me being a little boy, I just grew up believing, that's the way it should be, you know. And so she instilled some really good things in me, because following that direction, even though there wasn't a male in the house, following what she was saying was kind of teaching me. She was kind of, well, a man should open up the door for his woman when she's sitting in the car. How many men a day? How many men a day open up the car door for their woman? Right.
Wow.
So
that's amazing. That's some good morals and values. And I think that's very important too in training a child, you know, whatever values or morals you instill, like you said, in that child, they grew up. Like I remember, like I know, like we grew up in a single mother's home, right? I mean, we knew our dad, but my mom was a single mother. Let me just put it that way. And I know there were so many things that my mom used to tell us that I pretty much grew up with those values. I could say that the reason why I am the woman that I am today is because of those values, right? Like, so even though there wasn't physically a dad around, right? Like what you said, the woman that trained you, just put in those things like, oh, don't do this. This is what a man is supposed to do. This is what a lady is supposed, you know what I mean? Like, it's, right. Wow. So so many kids, even adults, right? They have like fathers, but they don't have relationships, right? With their fathers. And because of that lack of relationship, sometimes they feel it's kind of hard for them to, I'm not going to speak for everybody, I'm not generalizing, but because of that lack of relationship with their fathers, sometimes it causes a lack of trust or some kind of issues, depending on the relationship, right? So what do you have to say to those people that don't have a relationship with their father, or don't have a father figure or a dad? Let me say a dad.
Right. Well, first thing I would say, seeing that question really affects me like in a big way, because I didn't have a father. Well, I had a father, but I didn't have a dad. Let's put that. A man in the house, a man present for somebody. Somebody fathered me, so I did have a father, but I didn't even get into that.
I understand. Don't worry.
But from my standpoint, I would believe that you need to find a male role model that's a positive role model for you. Get involved in things where it's positive atmosphere. There's a man, find a man that, you know, I would first say find a man that's saved, a man that's in church, because I mean, there's the difference between a man that's worldly and a man that's in a church. The values are totally different. And the things that somebody that's living in the world, and I'm not trying to diss anybody, but the things that they would do would just be totally different than what a man in church, because not only do you learn as a man in church, but it teaches you a bunch of morals. The church teaches you how to respect your wife. The church teaches you that the man is supposed to be the head. And being the man being the head does not mean that the man is supposed to dominate the woman. And that's where a lot of men run into a problem, because they think that means I'm supposed to order you around and you do what I say. And that's not what it means. It means that you should share the responsibility. You know, sometimes you need to do the dishes in the house, or, you know, so I mean, it's just things that you need to do, the small things that count. But as far as a boy coming up without a father in the house, he really needs to get involved in like sports.
Right.
Find the sports where he's with people like peers, and then he's got coaches that are positive role models for him. They can give him advice. He needs to get involved in the youth programs, something of that nature, YMCA programs and stuff like that, where you can be involved with positive. Because if you don't have a man around, then at least you got some role models that, you know, find somebody that you can confide in that's a man, say, I really trust him. And you can tell him, hey, sometimes when you need somebody to talk to, because I got plenty of kids that I've fostered that are adults now, but they still come to me for advice. They come say, hey, it's like, hey, Dad, I need to talk to you. They're having a problem in their relationship. They'll text message me, or they'll Facebook me on Facebook and say, hey, I need to talk to you. I'm having this issue. And I'm like that role model for them, even though I'm not the biological dad. So it's just basically having a positive role model around, somebody else that you can talk to, and you can get advice for a man, because a woman can't teach you how to be a man.
No.
She can do a lot of, now don't get me wrong, women can do a lot of things to help you, but it takes a man.
Yes.
To take a man.
Yes.
And so you really need to have a man around. In the absence of that father, you need to have a positive man, role model man around, not an alcoholic or a drug head or something. That's not positive. And so, try to separate yourself from people that are not trying to mold you into becoming an entrepreneur, somebody that's going to grow up and get an education, go to college, somebody behind you that's pushing you.
Pushing, yes.
Yeah, pushing you in the right direction. It makes a big difference.
Wow. So what about like in the church? Because so as a music minister, you tend to have experiences in different churches, even though you're not there. I've heard, not just heard. This is a conversation that has been spoken about in the church. Okay, I want to take you back to the church now, because we know church is not perfect. It's not meant to be perfect. But what about the situation whereby in the church we have more women taking leadership roles, more women, acting as role models, whereby the men are just kind of laid back, or there's less men in the church? Like, what do you have to say? Because sometimes when I look around, I'm like, we need more men to be involved, especially when you have youth in the church, and then in the youth department, you have all women trying to talk to you have to be really gifted to talk to a youth who's going through some traumatic experience, especially a boy, for that child to listen to you. But if it's a guy, like a man, like, there's something about men where you're, like you said, you're able to get in, you're able to understand and relate. So what do you have to say about that? What do you think the church now needs to do right now in this time to change that?
That's a really tough question.
I know, but
yeah, the men absence in the church is a problem. It's a problem in my own church. In my own church right now today, there are more women active in the church than there are men. We have a few men in the church, but we have more youth, and they don't. And so it's kind of a sticky situation there. Again, in the church, even with the kids in the church, though, there should be probably youth programs for them. You need to have programs. Men need to, and I'm even talking about myself, men need to get more involved in the church, because the church was really set up that way, where the man was still supposed to be, like the head, and the woman, and I'm saying a woman can't be in charge in a church, but if you look at it biblically to what the Bible says, the man, he needs to stand up. And my pastor right now, is a female. And I have absolutely 100% respect for her. Right. Because because a lot of men try to talk about the female, well, she shouldn't be there, and I can't serve under a woman, and you get all this stuff and say, why not? Wow. Because the word, as long as she's preaching the truth and she's telling the truth, then that's what you should do. But for the youth in the church that don't have anybody to look up to in the church, I'm sure there's got to be at least one man in that church that they could, look up to. And what the few men that's in the church, they need to learn how to take the youth under their belt and say, okay, we got these men in the church. So, because I'm gonna be honest with you, most of those young males that are in the church are looking at that male man that's in the church. So you really have to be very, very careful of how you carrying yourself, especially when you're in the church, because the younger males are looking, because they don't have anybody else to look for. Right. So physically, they looking, okay, so let me see what Mr. Earl do. Let me see how Mr. Earl do this. Let me see how Mr. Earl talks. And a lot of times with boys in our church, and boys are going to be boys. They go in the bathroom, they hang out. You have to go, hey, look. So we go in there and we give them advice. Hey, it's cool to do this and do that, but you're in church. Right. You need to conduct yourself a certain way when you're in church, and give them advice, the same thing, have Bible classes. We do youth things in our church, like we'll go to a sporting event. Pick all the young boys and we'll go to bowling or something like that. Or we'll go, I remember one time we took all the boys to a football game, one of the Chiefs football games here in Kansas City. So we do things like that to kind of, but as far as their role, it's really tough when the women in the church are running everything and you like.
Well, yeah, because I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, like you said though, like even though it's just one male or one man in the church, and even though the person doesn't have a leadership role, like the fact that you're there, the way you carry yourself, you're basically acting as a role model. Like you don't have to be the head of the church, but the fact that you're a man, a male, and you're older and there are younger kids there, right? The way you present, just as women too, the way we present ourselves, the younger girls are looking at us and like, okay, see how Miss Katriel is doing this or whatever. It applies both ways, right? But the way a girl would see things is different from the way a boy would perceive things, right? So it's very important that I think it's important that the men in the church should start, like, relating more with the youth boys. I'm going to give you a story that happened late last year. So I went downtown Toronto for a program, and I thought the program was that day, but it wasn't. And I drove like over an hour. Actually, I drove 2 hours because I had to pick up like 2 people on the way. And I think I went that particular day on purpose. I think this was God's plan, okay? When I got there, the church was closed. There was no service at all. And I was so shocked. But when I went, after coming out from my car to go check in if there's anybody there, I saw a young boy. He's probably like between 16 and 18. He was sitting in the staircase there, and he was about to light some pots. I think it's pots, like, the ones, And when I went, I said, oh, did you see anybody going there? He's like, no, I didn't. I said, okay. And I looked to him, and there was something about him that just, it really, really, really touched my heart, okay? And I don't know if it's because I'm good with youth, I'm good with interacting with them or whatever, but I went and I came back and I said, hey, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I live in the shelter downtown Toronto. I'm like, what? What happened? Oh, my mom kicked me out, blah, 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 blah. And I looked at him. I'm like, you know what? For someone like you shouldn't do this, And as a woman, I couldn't help it but to cry because I've had an experience with someone close to me who was involved in like those kind of things too at that young age, And we tried everything to intervene for this person, and they never listened, because that father figure was not there. So when I looked at this young boy, I just started bawling. I'm like, please. And he felt so bad. He's like, please, miss, don't cry, please. I'm like, please don't do this to yourself. So imagine if I was a guy in that community. You know what I mean? Like the impact I'll be able to make. But I mean, fathers, man, you're important. You're needed. You're needed,
Definitely. Men are definitely needed with our youth today because they're so, and in Canada it may be a little bit different, but here in America it's just so bad with our young people out on the streets and drugs and guns, and then the killings is just unbelievable.
Join us as we continue the conversation next week on Tea with Katriel. Tea with Katriel, Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.